Welcome back to the Vienna Vibe. This is episode 4, I believe. And with me today, I have Tony Morrison. Tony, thank you for coming.
Yeah, happy to be here. I think this is a great idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate it. I've been pretty satisfied with how everything's going. So, yeah, I was kind of curious how all this would play out as we were setting up the studio, but I've been real happy with the response we've got and how everything's turning out. So, how have you been doing? You've been running for city council, right?
Yeah. The hustle, the grind, it's real. I think a lot of us candidates are really looking forward to the next Tuesday being behind us. So
it's got to be a huge sigh of relief. Yeah. Yeah. I've only caught bits and pieces of the amount of work and effort that goes into everything. And it is substantial. Yeah.
Well, whenever I first signed up and I heard other candidates talking about going door to door, I was like, nah, that's a little extreme, don't you think? And then I am out here going door to door. So, I mean, it's what it takes. I mean, if you really have a passion for it and want to be elected, that's what it takes is getting your name out there. And, that's what I've been trying to do.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, if you're trying to work for the people, then, I mean, there's really no substitute to meeting the people. So getting out there with them. So this is the first time we've actually met. I mean, we talked for a few minutes before this started, but aside from that, I've seen your name floating around. But you want to give a brief introduction for who you are and kind of, what brought you to this point?
Oh, briefly, yeah.
Briefly. That's kind of a loaded question, but
no. So briefly, I'm Tony Morrison. I was born and raised here in Vienna. Pretty much just moved back kind of on a permanent basis. Vienna's always been home, but really made it a permanent location where I don't travel out of town anymore this January. And, coincidentally, the same time I put my name in the hat for Vienna City Council. And I'm married. I've got my wife, Rachel. We've got 4 boys, all 7 and under. A lot of my family still lives here. So, I guess that's pretty much a brief introduction of myself.
Yeah. What do you do? Like, what's your career look like?
I'm a landman would be the kind of the simple term. If you want to get more intricate with my job title, I'm a senior right-of-way agent. A lot of what I do is I acquire land rights for certain companies, my client, to install whatever it is they're working on. For instance, the project right now is a water line. So I work with individual property owners to purchase water line rights to run through that individual property owner's property.
Right.
And that's what I've done for the last 14 years is, that style of negotiation. And it's just, I tell everybody that right-of-way agent's a right-of-way agent. I've acquired power lines. I've acquired gas lines, permanent, temporary gas lines, small gas lines, large gathering lines, small electric lines, water lines, well pads. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's all the same. It's just working with contracts and working with people and solving a problem and reaching an agreement.
Right. Absolutely. What areas do you work in?
Currently, I'm in Guernsey County and Tuscarawas County, Ohio. But I mean, as far as my career has been very spread out.
Yeah. So you said you kind of bounced around in other areas for a little bit before kind of landing more permanently back in Vienna, or at least to the extent that you're not having to travel anymore or anything. And I know you said you have roots, family in Vienna. What kind of led to you wanting to run for council?
Okay, good. Right into it. So Yeah. The story goes, it's kind of a long story. For me to really lay it all out, I graduated college, in 2010, University of Charleston, and I had a degree in finance and business administration, and banking was the natural kind of flow of things. I felt like that was my career path. I always liked numbers. It seemed like a reasonable decision. And so I found myself in that role, personal banker, teller, kind of working. Yeah, a little over a year, I'd say, with my internship and actual job after college. And I don't know, man, it's, after you get told, by the 40th or 50th person that, I'm responsible for their account being overdrafted, it just kind of started wearing on me, and I lost interest in it. And I got a phone call to make a really long story abbreviated here. I was scheduled for vacation, and that was the first week of June. And I got a phone call the last week of May saying, hey, we want you to come to Towanda, Pennsylvania to be a landman. And I was like, what's a landman? I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. Didn't even know where Towanda was, of course. And I had vacation scheduled the next week with my bank. And I had just interviewed, just gotten a new job, and was supposed to start this new job. I mean, my career was, in an upward motion. And I talked to the guy, and basically he convinced me to drive 7 hours from home 10 days later. I had to put in my 10-day, I didn't even get to give him 2 weeks. It was 10-day notice, and then it was only 3 days before I left for vacation. So that didn't blow over that well. But right. I was 23 years old and hopped in my 93 Chevy S10 loaded down with, a couple changes of clothes and, a sleeping bag. And here I go to Towanda, Pennsylvania. So that's how I got started into it. And that was 2011. Yeah, 2011.
That was just a couple of years ago, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and then really from there, so that was, Northeast Pennsylvania. And I worked a little bit of in Southern New York, Central New York, in that area. And then, I was there for 4 months, and then they moved me to Marion County, West Virginia. I was there for 4 months, and then moved to Wood, Pleasance, and Wirt, West Virginia, for about 3 months. And then I was laid off for about a month. And at that point, I kind of figured, all right, the gig's up. It was fun while it lasted. I've been in it for not even a full year yet. And then got a phone call, ended up going to Dover, Ohio. Yeah, I lived in Dover, Ohio for a while. And it was all the same work. That's the thing. And you learn as you get into the industry, you meet a bunch of people. The club is small, so right. Your reputation means a lot in the industry. And if you work hard, you can usually keep a good reputation, and people are always calling you for work. But yeah, just bounced around really for the first year and a half, 3 years, Dover, New Philadelphia, Canton, up there in Ohio for a while. And then I ended up in 2014 coming back to Lewis County, West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And in that time, I'd actually met my wife, and we had gotten married just a month before we moved back to West Virginia. So I don't know if you want me to keep going. I can keep going.
Oh, you're fine. So let me ask you this. With all of these different places you've lived in, and obviously opportunities anywhere, we're about the same age, right? I think you mentioned you're 36. I'm 37. There has been this trend, and I know I've mentioned this with the other candidates I've spoken with as well, of kind of an exodus of younger people, of millennials and younger, from the Mid-Ohio Valley, leaving this area. With these opportunities that you've had everywhere else, and obviously it was a choice to come back to Vienna, and notwithstanding the fact that you have family here, you still could have landed anywhere else. What drew you back to this area?
To properly answer that, let's fast forward to my jumping aroundness to Kansas. 2021, I ended up in Kansas, first Manhattan, Kansas, the home of the Wildcats, Kansas State. Ended up there for a year, and it was supposed to be a 6-month job, and we ended up killing it, man. We got it done so fast. The team I was on was great. Knocked it out of the park. Got done, and right around February or March, basically. And they gave me essentially 3 months to just kind of hang out and wait for the next project. So sure, they had odd jobs to do here and there, but I mean, for the most part, I was being paid to just kind of stand by and help whenever they needed it. In that time of that standby, I really had to, I was forced for the first time in my adult life to focus on my family. I know that sounds kind of bad, but the truth is it was bad. I had spent my career kind of focused on my career and advancing my career. And I had these kids and I had this wife and they're great, but I never really like spent an exorbitant amount of time with them. I kind of had just always been focusing on career, and this kind of, really grounded me, brought me back to home, and I had to start, thinking about their needs and spending time with them and really got introduced to them, as a unit at that time. And, it really kind of brought a magnifying glass in my own life, opened my eyes as the things that I was doing wrong and the mess that I had kind of made of my kids and my, relationship with my wife. And, having all that brought into a magnifying glass, I found myself in that 3-month period of time, kind of wondering like, okay, how can I make this better? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better human being, a better father? And it kind of led me to the Holy Bible. I started opening it up and reading from the book of Matthew. And that was in June of 2022. And since then, I've never put it down. And I've really been studying, and it's allowed me to look at my life through a different lens and kind of see all the blessings that I've had, and how I was just trashing them from the beginning, but it's now given me a new perspective. So now that I've got this new vision, I was really, and we had always planned on coming back home. That was always in the works, we weren't 100% sure it was going to happen, but we always felt like this was home. Like this was home. Whenever we were away, that's what we were working away. And it was okay. We know we're coming back home. I want to now be involved in a way that's, a positive impact on wherever we're going to be. And I got to know a fella out in just south of Lawrence, Kansas. Awesome dude, good Christian guy. And he and I had some really long conversations, and he was involved in so many different, things back home in his hometown where he grew up. And he did the same thing. He grew up in a small town and then moved away and did all the travel stuff and then came back. Right. And he was telling me about all these different things that he was involved in. And he and I are the same age, and he's got young kids too. And he's like, man, he's like, he said, Tony, I really feel like you need to be in some kind of like local politics. Do you guys have your hometown? Do you guys have like a council or something? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I think they have a city council. I didn't know. Yeah. So that was kind of the start of it. And I started researching, council, and my wife and I talked about it. And it was something that I really felt like I was being led, into. And this was 2023 now. So and then fast forward to the end of 23, I have my wife and family have moved back here. It's now Christmas time. I'm in town for 2 months. I'm still finishing a job out in Kansas, but my wife and kids are here because they're going to school. And my wife and I are having a conversation. All right, what do you think about council? Do I really need to do this? Is this something? And we're having like, a long conversation about it. And it's after Christmas. I think it's even after New Year's. And I'm looking at the page, the City of Vienna webpage, and I'm seeing all the council members, on the page, and I'm scrolling down. And I see Jim's face on there, and all the other people that are pictured on the council members. And I was like, you know what, I'm not ready. I need to sit in for 4 years and really learn. And I don't know. I just. And I started kind of, backpedaling a little bit, like not feeling very, yeah. And, Rachel and I that day, this was Thursday morning right before I'm headed back to Kansas to finish. I got 2 more weeks out there. And Rachel and I, we settled. I'm not going to run. Okay. So I go, and now it's Friday afternoon. I pick my kid up from school. And mind you, I'm laid off. I'm not really working right now. I'm just kind of at home. So I've got free time. I'm messing around the house. I got, a to-do list this long.
Right. Yeah.
So I go to pick up my kid up after school and go to the bank and was standing there. And lo and behold, here's Jim Leach standing at the bank. And I walked up to him and I was like, I was just looking at your face on the website the other day. And he and I started talking. And he said something that day, and I don't know. I've probably told him this now before, but he just really encouraged me. He said, Tony, no one knows anything about council until they actually are on it. He said, that's something you just learn on the job. I don't care what kind of experience you have. You bring your outside experiences to council. And really, after he said that to me, I left the bank, and I literally was just praising God. I was like, you've opened this door for me now. And I see clearly this is where I'm supposed to be. I called my wife and I was like, hey, I'm running, I'm in it, and, so, that's really the short and sweet version of why I'm here. And obviously, my heart is with our teens and young families, people like us. I think there's a lot to offer, a lot of potential in this town with the new developments that we have coming in, and that innovation and technology center that's being built right on top of the hill. I mean, I just see so much potential here, and I want to make sure that our demographic gets represented, gets a proper say in how that gets developed. Because if we miss out on this time right now, and things get developed in a wrong way, I mean, it could set our city back, decades, really. So I think it's important that we have young people in the decision-making process now to at least be weighing in on, this is what needs to happen, give our perspective. And, with my experience being, living in so many different small towns and across the United States, and seeing how all these small towns have done great things on little budgets. It's really given me a bunch of ideas that I can see us implementing here right now. So I'm excited, man. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. Good. And so I want to touch on one of the points you mentioned in there. One of the things we were talking about before we started recording, you talked about how, you were having that conversation with the fellow in Kansas, and you were like, oh, I suppose we probably have a council. I don't know. But so we were talking about how, particularly with our demographic and younger, we're not aware. No one's really paying attention to what's going on at a local level like this, which is really what influences your day-to-day life. I mean, that has a huge impact on everyone living here. And not only are people not paying attention, there's just not really much of an avenue for people to pay attention if they want to. And we were talking about different ways to bring that information to people in a more palatable way. I think Vienna has done, to their credit, very well with making information available about what council is doing. They live stream all of their council meetings, but like we were talking about, are you really trying to sit through a 2-hour live stream of a city council meeting versus, finding some more palatable way to get that information to people? And I don't know that there's really a question in there, but I thought that was a, interesting point that you were making about trying to get people more involved and give them a way, to be involved and informed on what's going on. Do you have any other kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of hit it. I mean, let's be honest, city business is boring.
Right.
There's not always going to be fireworks popping off in council chambers on every other Thursday night. It's a lot of times it's, voting on something that, has to be done, or something that's a part of, just normal operating procedures. So, and look, that's what we're elected for. People put their trust in the council people. And I don't know if this will air, before or after the election, but I don't know if I'm on council yet, but I know I want to be involved and I want to be part of that decision-making process. But the people, they put their trust in those council members to make those decisions because somebody has to. And it's an important process. But a lot of times there's sprinkled in those meetings things that are meaningful, like Spencer's Landing, like John's Manville, like 12th Street, like the property, that just got annexed into the city of Vienna, the 12th Street Road that's being developed right beside my house to gain access to, so that's the kind of stuff that I feel like, do I really want to sit through a 2.5 hour long meeting or try and, fast forward through a meeting online to try and get to the meat and potatoes? Or would it be kind of nice to listen to, an entertaining podcast or something that's a little more entertaining, like what y'all are doing here, or maybe even like YouTube Shorts or Facebook Reels or something that, gets the short, concise meat and potatoes information out to the people in a meaningful way. And I'm not trying to say, like, one thing that really kind of bothers me is you listen to like these news outlets and, there's left and there's right. I don't think there's any place for that in city government. I think it's nonsense. Let's just spout off the facts and let the people make it, their own unbiased kind of decision on what but getting that information out in a way that, more people would be interested in being involved, I think is extremely important.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And although, like you said, it's not like there are fireworks going off at every council meeting, yeah. But that is still, those boring decisions are what makes the day-to-day quality of life for people a lot more than what's going on at a national level, really. And that's kind of one of the things that I think is interesting about doing this podcast, is shining a little bit of a light on those sort of processes that are going on, because there's just the information isn't really there for people to, be able to be in tune with what's going on that's actually, having an impact on their day-to-day lives. So you mentioned, that you had this inspiration and all these ideas about, what Vienna could look like and these different ways to improve it for the coming generations. Do you want to share any specifics? You got any kind of specific, I've called them pet projects. I don't think that's really a good phrasing, but any specific ideas for, what Vienna could look like in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, certainly. Drew, I'm a dreamer, man. I've got big visions, and I think I talked to you a little bit. I'm a big picture kind of person. Mm-hmm. I like to look at the project as a whole and the finished part of it, and then be a part of the process of making it to that. It's a lot of what I have to do as a right-of-way agent. I part of my spiel, I guess you could say, is there's a point A and there's a point B. This is where we're starting. This is where we're finishing. Now I have to connect the dots with the individual property owners. And there's a lot of problem solving that goes into that along the way, because, some people don't want to work with you. Some people do want to work with you. Some people want too much money. Some people, there's a give and take. But to get that process from A to B, that's really what I've specialized in 13 and a half years of doing. And I take that experience and bring it to Spencer's Landing, bring it to John's Manville. Okay, my big picture idea is, Spencer's Landing is going to be, a place where we have a boat dock. I think if you start at the river and you kind of work your way inland, you've got a dock for both commercial and non-commercial people to kind of park their boats. I'd like to see the Mississippi Queen parking at Spencer's Landing,
right? Yeah.
Or the World War II ship that was here.
Oh yeah, my kids love that.
Yeah, I'd love to see that down at Spencer's Landing. What a great attraction. And then if you kind of think about it, as the people are getting off the Mississippi Queen, they walk into kind of like a community-driven botanical garden. I don't know why. In college, whenever botanical gardens really meant nothing to me, mm-hmm. I found myself fascinated with this botanical garden down in Huntington, West Virginia, that I, was there with some friends walking around. It was fascinating. And then I learned that a lot of it was, being cared for by various clubs and organizations that were there in Huntington. And what a community event. I mean, to have something like that, it's really a work of art, God's right. nature. And you've got all these different community organizations coming together to kind of care for it. And then people from outside of your area get to come and see that beauty. I mean, that's just one thing. And, all of the different things that will come to Spencer's Landing, I think, Thrasher Group is working on the big picture. So walking through Spencer's Landing and then getting to Johns Manville and, the kind of the vision I have for that. And I know there's a lot of pieces to this to kind of get it to completion, but I'd like to see some sort of development that includes, indoor athletics, indoor soccer fields, indoor basketball courts, indoor, turf, something that can be multi-use pickleball courts, something that will bring people from afar to come, play in tournaments in our city, come to Vienna and, bring that economy with them from an outside source to kind of help boost, our restaurants and our shopping that we have, already here and possibly even inspire others to, have little shops pop up in old downtown Vienna.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I know I've mentioned on here before, I love a lot of the small independent shops we have around here. Like Vienna has some of my favorite little places, small restaurants, boutique stores and everything in the area. And yeah, just continuing to support those and draw more of them in. I think it's great. Yeah. And as far as the indoor athletics, Vienna has a little bit of that out at Jackson Fields, but not very much. Right.
Yeah. Well, and two, I think it's something, you look at like a city like Bridgeport, and what they've done out there, the bridges, and what they're doing down in Charleston, where they're making half of the old mall into a facility. I think we could do something like that on a scaled approach. Obviously, we don't need to spend $80 million like Charleston is.
Right,
we could do it on a scaled approach, but make something fantastic, something that draws people to our area that, give them, and also keep in mind, we've got a lot of kids here in our town now. They could utilize that facility as well as, after school programs, and make it extremely affordable, make it affordable for parents, there's a lot of different ideas I have, and I hate to throw out dollar figures, but I know for a fact right now, in Bridgeport at the bridges, their after school program is $6 a day, for their kids to go spend, 4 hours after school every day, at this world-class facility and have endless amounts of, activities to do. You also could have, independent classes. You can have, stuff for, adults. You can have stuff for kids. You can have stuff for, teens. There's the possibilities are endless with that. And one other thing, and I've mentioned this many times, and again, I think you have to do this in a kind of a build out, multi-stage approach. I don't think it all gets slapped together at once, but I'd really like to see an indoor water park.
Oh yeah.
I know it, whenever you mention that, people's eyes get real wide, like, oh, how's that possible? But, look at the slides we have at Jackson. If you take that, there's a couple places I've looked at, in the surrounding areas, but we went down to Pigeon Forge a couple years ago with the family, and they had one of these massive slides that went outside and then came back inside and it's great, and it's year round.
I know. Yeah, my kids would lose their minds for that.
And you do, Wood County residents get, discounted memberships, and I think it's something, if city owned it, it's not going to be profitable. I think the idea of it being profitable, we should just push that to the side. But if we get it to where it's a net zero, where it essentially is paying for itself, and then we make they're able to make some profit elsewhere. I don't know that it ever becomes profitable, and I don't think that should be the point. But the point is it's a net zero. I think that's realistic,
and that's a huge draw for bringing new people into the community, and making people in the community happier, and bringing outside people in, and then bringing profit to all these businesses in the area too.
Exactly.
And, I mean, that the child care, the after school care that you were talking about, as well as I do, it's a huge strain. Like we are thrilled with the care that our youngest gets who's in daycare right now, but our daycare payment's more than our mortgage.
It's just $6 a day all of a sudden sounds a little more
much
reasonable.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, just to piggyback on what I was saying too, you've got this John's Manville property, this place where if you want to go inside, you've got attractions. I think eventually you could build it out to include an arcade. I think you can include a gaming area, and this is great for your teens. You're able, look what they're doing over at the Boys and Girls Club. Lynn Rhines and that team over there has done an amazing job. They've got over like 200 kids showing up, to that facility, and they're getting some grants now and getting the attention that they deserve. And the school buses are bringing kids from the schools to that facility. And it's awesome to see something like that taking place in Parkersburg. And I'd like to kind of get, what she's got going on over there happening in Vienna to kind of help our, smaller community. And you can even, loop in Williamstown and loop in like northern Parkersburg into this area, as well. I don't think it necessarily has to be strictly, Vienna residents. I think you could incorporate several of the small surrounding areas into it as well.
Oh yeah. And absolutely. What happens in Vienna has a big effect on the surrounding areas. I don't even live in Vienna. I live in North Parkersburg. That's just how it worked out when we were searching for our house. There just wasn't anything available in Vienna that would have worked for us. We would like to be over here. It just hasn't happened yet. Probably will eventually. But yeah, Vienna is a big draw. I mean, people come from, wherever to all the places in Vienna, and it's absolutely no question that any of those improvements are going to be a benefit to the surrounding communities as well. And the another thing I wanted to ask about, so you've talked about your work as a landman and how you talk to all these vastly different people with vastly different backgrounds and kind of work to get them on the same page and move everything forward. Can you speak a little bit to, I guess, your experience with that and maybe how that kind of problem solving and collaborative work with these people who maybe are coming at things from a different point of view, how that could kind of play into, your role as a city councilman working with these different people to accomplish these projects?
Yeah. I think one of the tricks to council is you've got 7 different personalities.
Right.
Yeah, we might all, have the same objective. I think, and I've said this from the beginning, I believe if you're putting your name in the hat for a council person, you're wanting to serve the public. You've got a heart for, Vienna. And I believe that. I know some people might disagree with me, but I believe that if you're wanting to get involved at that level, you've got a heart for Vienna and you really care about what's best for it. But we all have different approaches. As far as working with the council, I'm very strong-minded, but I also have the ability to kind of step back and see it from other people's perspectives. And I have to for my job, a lot of what I do is making agreements that match the individual property owner. And I see that, from this vantage point, I might think, it needs to be this way, but I also would appreciate being able to listen to other ideas and listen to other opinions and step back and kind of see it from that perspective. And I know I'm not always right. I like to think that I am sometimes, but I know that it's not the case.
Right.
And, but I do have a strong opinion, and I'll make my opinion known. But I also want to hear others. There's a lot of experience, I think, too. If depending on how this plays out, there's several people that have been attending the meetings for years and and really decades. For some, but listening to them and listening to what they say, is going to be a big part of the decision-making process. I don't want to come in thinking, my answer is the way, and, listening to other opinions and really making the decision that's best for Vienna, removing myself while I feel like I bring a unique perspective. removing myself in the end from that, decision and putting Vienna first and what's going to be best for them. I think, it'll help, I think, if we can keep everybody on that kind of track of mind. What's going to be best for Vienna in the end? And that's what we all have to be focused on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I talked with this about Carrie when she was on, but it's like you said, if you're running for council, local politics are not really politics. I mean, it's administration, it's public service. Everyone that's running for council, yourself, all the others, you're members of the community. I mean, you have to want the community to continue to thrive and want what's best for them. It serves no one. It doesn't make any sense to assume that anyone's coming in with a specific agenda and just trying to, do things solely for the benefit of themselves. It's not productive. You just have to want what's best for the community. I mean, it's your community as much as it's anyone else's, and you're just a part of it, and that's just kind of what this is, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, and just to kind of add to what you're saying, I mean, the community is a big part of it, and I think for years now, and maybe as long as I can remember. We've kind of lost that community input. You go to council chambers every other Thursday. It's the same group of people. There isn't a large. Now I know there's people that watch it online that pay attention. I know, I've talked to people outside of chambers that are aware of what's going on and keep up with it, but the number is very small. And I think trying. With the podcast that you got going here and, maybe with some kind of a other means to get the information, I think focusing on drawing other people in. Let's face it, there's 7 people that make the decisions.
Right.
Okay. 7 people make the decisions, but those 7 people are not going to be the ones that drive, all of the progress that happens. Those 7 people are only responsible for making decisions. We need input and we need help. I mean, and I use the word help very all capitalized. We need help from the community. I would love to see a community that just invests their time and energy back into the city that they live in to try and make things better. And that's why I love the idea of the botanical garden down here. Getting different groups involved, getting the middle school, getting the elementary schools involved. Maybe a high school club. Having something where they spend once a month they come down and spend an hour. I'm sure there's a teacher out there that'd be willing to give bonus points. To come down and spend an hour. But realistically, getting other people that outside of the school system, I mean, just getting everyone working together in unison to drive the train to make Vienna better for all of the citizens. I think that's super important.
Right. Yeah. And I think Vienna has been doing great lately about at least putting on these different events for their citizens. That Glow in the O went great. And then, the Freedom Fest that's happened in the last couple of years. There's been a lot of very good things happening. And I think just continuing to capitalize on those and expand them sounds, wonderful. So we've probably been going, I don't have a timer, probably about half hour, 45 minutes or so. Do you have any kind of, final thoughts, anything we haven't touched on that you wanted to talk about?
Just want to reiterate. I mean, this is the thing. And I've said this before in chambers. I've said this before, among friends. I've said it among peers. I've said it, really everywhere and anywhere that I can say it. Mm-hmm. There's not anything that any one person is going to be able to do that's going to be, that's going to make Vienna better as a whole. It's going to take a community effort. It's going to take people coming together for a common purpose, for a common goal, bringing back that sense of a community through I think the Freedom Festival and the Glow in the O and the different Vienna Fun Days that they've had this summer. There's so many events that are going on. The scavenger hunts. There's all these things that are happening, and I really think that's a good start. But it's also about developing a change in culture too. We've got to not only have these events, but we've got to get people, conversing. It's so easy to just show up and stand in a line. I think COVID kind of changed our mentality a lot.
Definitely. Yeah. It's been a big reacclimation period to kind of rebuild that sort of just getting out, interacting with your neighbors, having that community spirit where you're kind of, all, working together, looking out for each other. Yeah, that was COVID definitely put a big damper on that. And getting back to that it's been a lot.
Yeah. And it's so much more than just, working together toward a common goal, but just being together. Mm-hmm. And you see it now with a lot of the local churches. You've been seeing people, congregating out on the lawns and a lot of outdoor activities. I've seen a fire the other weekend. A control, in a fireplace fire. Roasting marshmallows. I think the more you can get the community getting involved in just being together, then you couple that with, a few people trying to get the information out and getting some, feedback, and you just continue to push that. And more than anything, positiveness, so much. And I can't even hardly listen to the national news anymore because it's just constantly tearing each other down. And, for us to thrive, we really need to be focusing not on the negative, but on the positive. How can we encourage you? How can I encourage this person to be involved? How can I encourage this person to show up, and do that, whatever it is? How can I encourage, people to work together as a community? And I think if more humans start focusing on that aspect of being an encouragement and being a positive impact on each other's lives, rather than trying to be so divisive and negative for each other, but just being a positive, and really focusing on it, like above and beyond, like almost obnoxiously a positive person.
Right.
If you take it to that extreme, it's infectious, man. And I've been blessed to see, I don't claim to have any, any influence, but just being around council chambers and listening to the mentality change, man. I'll tell you, last meeting, I didn't get to stay for the whole thing, but I really just wanted to walk in and be there. We had Thursday night church and I wanted to be there with my family, but I also wanted to get on there and just say thanks, for several of the organizations that helped us have a really good fall family festival, and especially to the candidates, just for showing up. And we had over 500 people show up for this event, but I wanted to say thanks. And I wanted to say, guys, this wasn't something Tony did. My name might have been associated with it, but Tony didn't do it. Tony was a very, very, very small part of many people that came together to make a beautiful thing. And the community, if we had 500 people show up to this, never anticipated that. And having, in such a short amount of time, putting something together like that really opened my eyes to how if a group of people work together, 20, 30 people, that's all it took. And we put together really a beautiful thing. And we had 500 people. And I went to the council chambers that night and I expressed my gratitude for, all the people that were involved and making that happen. And then I listened. I had to leave. So I literally, came in, talked, mic drop, walk out. Yeah. I got to listen to it afterwards. And I got to hear everybody else come up and talk. And it was such a blessing to hear each member, and they were all council candidates. Each of them came up and they just had something good to say, and for the first time it was like, man, what a blessing. Like that's what it should be like. Yeah, there's going to be problems. Yeah, there's going to be things that we need to work on, rather than bringing our problems to the table, let's bring solutions for the problems and let's be positive and let's talk about things in a brighter light. And listening to that last meeting was just very encouraging.
Right. I mean, that's the human spirit, right? I mean, look at all of the things that we have collectively accomplished over our years on the earth. It's all from everyone just having that, that attitude of collaborative problem solving, of getting together, of seeing how, what problems exist, but more importantly, how they can be solved, how we can make things just a little bit better for the next generation. I mean, yeah, that's a very refreshing perspective. I will say, to your point about, keeping up with the national news cycle, it's exhausting. I largely disconnected from that over the last several years, and it has been one of the most invigorating decisions that I've ever made. Just affirming, if you go outside, you talk to your neighbors, these are wonderful, positive people, and you can have a lot of wonderful, positive interactions, and great things are possible if you just, go into that with a positive attitude. So yeah, Amen. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'd like to just say one more thing. I know it's been a while, and if anybody's actually made it to the end of this, this is for those people, being the same energy that people want to put into the national, you listen to the rhetoric, they get so angry about stuff. If you put that same energy into your local organization, your local politics, your local city, if you really drive that energy into your hometown, think of the good things that could happen. And I think that's, I've said that to a couple people, and I'll tell you, both times I've said it in the beginning, I didn't even intend to speak it. It just kind of, came out of you. Man, there's so much truth in that. Take that energy, that a lot of times misguided hatred, and turn that around and flip it and make it positive and drive that into your own community. Man, how good would that be? And then if you see that kind of start off in Vienna, and we kind of set the tone, we make an example of, this is what it looks like, America, and that kind of catches and grows in popularity. And then you see that spread to other communities throughout the state, and, and then you see it in Ohio, and you start to see, I think if more people grab hold of that idea, that culture change and really run with it, I think we can see, America kind of turn around and get away from this ugly divisiveness that we've seen for the last, 20 years, and really come back together and for the better of all.
Right. Absolutely.
Big picture, man.
Yes,
I know.
Yes,
yeah.
Big picture. So yeah, I don't know that I have anything. I don't think I can end on anything stronger than that. So Tony, I really appreciate your time. I thank you for being here.
This is awesome. Great. I love what y'all are doing. This is great. I think this is a good thing. I'm excited to see what happens with the Vienna vibe. I know I'll be tuning in. So y'all are doing it right.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate that. So thank you. This has been the Vienna vibe. So thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for listening.